Hello and welcome to the guide to Explosive Conflict Hard Mode. This is a pub run done myself just to get the tactics narrated. What we have here is Toff and Zorn, the first boss. They are a challenging first boss. What you need to do, from each class perspective, is I will start with tanking. It's quite crucial for this. With tanking procedure here, you take them opposite ends. It's up to you which ends you choose, but an easier way to do it is how you see it here, where it's one against the wall on the left, one against the wall on the right. There's a small slot on the wall on the right where you can easily get your back into. That's normally where most people decide to go. The swaps for the tanks, the reason why you tank swap as tanks is because there is a debuff called Fearful. Right? This is something for DPS to worry about, but I'll come to that in a moment. You see, because it's a little bit of a DPS race they have a bit of a tight enrage timer. The tank that has got Zorn, if you didn't swap, that tank would have the debuff called Fearful, which is a DPS reflect debuff. So that tank would not be able to put damage on Zorn without killing himself, which, you know, it helps the DPS overall when everyone can be on the boss. But this doesn't mean that you have to. You can actually just taunt. You don't have to swap at all, but for most people they find it easier to swap just because, you know, it gets over a little bit of a DPS raise, it helps a bit. So for tanking wise, you can choose either to not swap and the tank that's got Zorn to just not attack, just taunt until Fearful is worn off, or you can choose to simply do the swaps. The swaps come at night. Well, you swap when Toff jumps to Zorn. These jumps come at 90, 70, 50, 30 and 10%, and that's irrespective of each other. If one is at 73 and the other is at 70, doesn't matter, whichever one gets to 70 first, or whichever 10%, 20% margin, he will just jump. Okay, so if Zorn was at, like, say 75, but Toff's at 70, Toff's going to jump, and respectively, if Zorn was at 70, Toff would still jump. Okay. Now during the fight, tank wise, you're going to need to find a good camera angle so that you know what's going on. Use your tab key, don't click, and just single taunt off each other. DPS, right. On Zorn, you must have ranged DPS. Reason for this is, as long as you're above 27 meters away from Zorn, you will not get the Fearful debuff, and you can just continuously DPSing down the boss. If, by any means, whatever reason, you end up with Fearful, by accident or what have you, then you can just swap to Toff. Just don't hit Zorn. By all means, don't stop DPS, but just swap targets until Fearful has worn off. It's uncleansable, so healers, you can't do anything to help them out with that. Okay, so that's the fight. Melee DPS on Toff. Now, you can just stand him all the time, but don't be under him when the jump comes. Right, another thing here that you need to be aware of is when Zorn starts throwing rocks. While Toff goes berserk, Zorn starts throwing rocks, and the idea is that one person in the raid will have a yellow AoE marker underneath them. You take that marker and place it underneath Toff's feet. But what you do is you do not stand in front, you make sure you're behind his ankles and let it turn from yellow to purple and then run out of the circle. What will happen is then Zorn throws a rock, it then knocks Toff out, basically stops his berserk, so the tank's going to take a lot less damage during this, and you need that to happen, because during this Zorn is actually untauntable until it's stopped. Okay? So once that's done, that can be anyone, by the way. That can actually be a tank, it can also be healers, all that sort of jazz. So just be aware of that. Trying to think now. Healer wise, there is a debuff on this. It's the orange debuff that comes up on your screen. I'm just keeping this as simple as possible. As soon as you see it, cleanse, don't worry about yourself so much, but cleanse the DPS because they're going to take a fair amount of damage through this. DPS first, cleanse the tanks afterwards because they can take more damage obviously from it. Any DPS that can self-cleanse, please do this because obviously it gets you through, you know, it gets you out the damage as fast as you can. And healer wise, mainly just focus on make sure those tanks are well looked after. Make sure you static barrier the tanks, make sure they're topped up constantly. If a DPS is low and the tank's moderate, get the tank up first because it's just going to be too much. If you lose a tank here and you use your Comrev and then you lose another one, well, that's game over at that point. You need the tanks because without both tanks alive the entire fight, you won't have anyone to deal with the swaps. They get a damage increase buff when they're too close together, and I'm afraid that will cause a wipe. So once they're both dead, unfortunately you still got to kill this guy, but he's just the handler. Now he, very simple, just some red AoEs, do not worry about him too much. And you just take him out. First boss drops an implant, and there we go, that is Toff and Zorn. Moving on to Stormcaller and Firebrand. Now these two tanks have their own unique set of challenges, but they are a good boss. There's two ways about this, you see. Left group does Firebrand, right group does Stormcaller. I'll start with Firebrand tactics as I'm on Firebrand in this particular video. Right, I'm DPS here, Arsenal Merc. What happens is, on Firebrand, few mechanics to worry about, and the difference is from story mode, is when you're tanking this, you will get a debuff chucked on you. I'm going to do tank tactics first here, called Incinerate Armour. Now an old-fashioned tactic here is actually do a tank swap. And you can do that. You can, as soon as the tank will call out swap, you would jump tanks, and the other tank can just take Firebrand with no need to worry about his armour. But the problem with that is the other tank does still have an armour decrease, so it's not really fixing the issue. What I would recommend is have a Juggernaut tank do on Firebrand, and that's Incinerate Armour there. I just took it because I pulled the aggro off. What happens is with that is it decreases your armour down. The idea is have your Juggernaut tank just use his cooldowns and save an Absorb Adrenal until the debuff is actually worn off. Or, if you happen to have a DPS with a Taunt in the group, he can just taunt it to take Incinerate Armour, then the tank takes it back. That's one way of doing it for Firebrand. Here's the difference with the ads now. The ads are now random, they do not spawn in the same locations. You want to use your map for this. Personally, what I do is I stay on the tank and I aim myself so that when I get knocked back off the tank, I land in the group. Now, do not use AoEs here because you can destroy the shield generator. Of course, that will cause a wipe of your group if you do that. Obviously, the tank that's on Stormcaller needs to be moving around constantly here to kite the blue. What I suggest is that he pays one visit to his group and then another visit to the other group down the bottom. Right, that's how I would do it, because you're on the move that way, you're constantly on the move, you're not going to take too much damage, and if you do, there'll be healers for you. That's it for Firebrand. You rinse and repeat the exact same procedure over and over and over again. With both these tanks, the healers stay off, everybody else stays on them. Okay, so that's how that works there. The reason why is because you need to have your healers off so that they can take the blues and the yellows that Firebrand puts out. The yellows, which is a single target missile, you must cleanse it off yourself to actually lose it, otherwise it will just stay on you and then eventually just, either cause damage or take you out. Right, Stormcaller tactics. Tank-wise, you will have the ability from Stormcaller called Double Destruction. What happens is, you make sure that you're at the front, or the back, it's up to you, whichever way you want to stand, doesn't really matter. And the idea is this: when you get it, make sure that you rotate behind where two DPS are. The DPS that are on your tank, make sure you move behind them, and it will be absorbed by the group. It won't just go and one-shot you, it will be absorbed by the group. You must look out for this. The big Q is obviously it's going to have its cast bar, but it's when the two large cannons on the front pulse blue, and they'll pulse for a little bit whilst they're looking at it, whilst the cast is happening. So that's your visual cue on that one, that's very important to get right. The DPS, it's very simple, it's exactly the same for Firebrand. Just do as much damage as you can. There is a bit of a tight enrage time on these as well. Just keep it going, just keep up the DPS, watch out for the blues in case you get the odd random one fall down like just there. Because you do have that moment when you're not on the tank where you could possibly drop the blue on somebody. So be aware of that and just watch out for it. So, as you can see here, Incinerate Armour's gone on the tank. He is managing his cooldowns in this run. This was a public run, so I don't know exactly what people were doing. So, as you can see there, he's absorbing the damage there. Now, he's used Shroud because he's an assassin, so Shroud will last for a fair while, should last for most of the majority of the debuff. And as you can see here, position myself and knock back. The one thing you don't want to do, as an Arsenal Merc doing this, is you don't want to put on Hydraulic Override at that point, because you do want to get knocked back. And as you can see there, just single target and kill those ads down one by one. As long as your group's doing about 4.5 upwards, you shouldn't have a problem with this. You really shouldn't have a problem with it. It's a bit tight on DPS, but it's honestly manageable. The harder parts come later on in this video. There is one point of EC where most pub groups will fail because of the lack of voice communication. Yes, you can use TeamSpeak and that sort of jazz, and that's grand. You really can. As long as you can keep up good comms, not just abusing each other. You can get through it. But this is relatively simple, and a very easy way of getting through this, to be honest with it. Especially if you've got a power tech tank. If it's a power tech tank, he hasn't got the cooldowns to manage this at all. But you can have a DPS with taunt off you, or use an absorb adrenal after your reactive shield wears out, and you should just about survive, but you'll need a good healer on that power tech. Okay, so the power tech will probably be better off, to be honest with you, on Stormcaller, but depends what you've got. So you get a good idea now of the fight. It is rinse and repeat the same thing over and over and over again. You, as ranged DPS, we have a benefit here. Of course, we can stay under the shield and do some more DPS for longer. So we do end up taking out Firebrand first, but only marginally versus about 1-2% difference. Ideally, you want to try and get Stormcaller dead first, just because of the fact that the blues are a bit more. The blue pulsing electrical fields that he puts out are a little bit worse than what Firebrand has. There now. As you can see now, there's one of the yellows that has to be cleansed off. Nearly lost the tank. And there we go, and now boom. So there you go, that is the 2 tanks, the second boss of EC done, which drops a relic. Third boss, Colonel Volgeth. Now this is where it's the hardest part of the operation by far. It's very tricky without proper communications. If you're doing this in a public group, the idea is that you set an interrupt order before you start. The reason why you do this is because you simply will not stand a chance if you don't do this. Alright, so I'm on the second cleave interrupt here, okay? Now I'm going to explain how the probe works. The probe that comes down, as you see here, he will drop a defusal kit. You may know this from story mode. Now the defusal kit on hard mode is only good for 1 mine. On SM you can do up to 3, it's very easy, but on here, no, won't work. Now the cleave does a fair amount of damage, but it's even worse when he enrages, okay? So I'm going to start with tank tactics here, number 1. Alright? So, number 1 for tanks. 1 tank goes in the tower and does the minefield. The idea is this: get a green immediately, get the droid down, kill your ad, get back to unlocking the minefield. You ideally want to get everyone on the left hand side, but you unlock the 2 left paths all the way up to the top. That way you can see what you've got to work with. Maybe one side's better than the other one, you know, you use that one, or at least it's better marginally up, then you can use the other one for the end part. The idea is to use as fewer kits as possible, because you've only got about 4.5 minutes before those turrets enrage, and when they enrage you will not survive this. Okay, so there is a strict DPS requirement here. It's quite demanding. Like I said, 4.5k. If everyone's doing 4.5, maybe a bit better than that, then you should be fine. Okay, so tank tactics. The tank that's in the field. The idea is this: these guys haven't got the right idea here, but the idea is that you keep DPS in one corner, say bottom left, or in our case probably in the middle, because if we get a knockback it would only take us backwards, the overload there. So the idea is that you have people in the back or in one corner, the other tank in the other corner facing it away. The idea of this is when the cleave happens, it doesn't cleave the group, it just cleaves the tank. Okay, that's what people forget. They get so you know, stuck in the action that there is a way of thinking about this, that the cleave can actually only hurt one person. Alright, so remember that. If you are the tank, face it away from the group, that way the cleave will, the healers will love you for it, put it that way. Right, okay, so once you've got your defusal kit, it'll be the player and a pair of purple pliers above their head. Just go and defuse your mine, carry on. As you can see here, the minefield's been unlocked. We can see that right now we can go to the left, so overloads wouldn't be a problem if everyone just comes and gets their back against the wall. The cleaves are the damaging one. The overload one does no damage, but it does do a knockback, and it's all the way around. It's 360 degrees. So you need to make sure you're backed against something, or you've got hydraulic overrides on, or ideally it must be interrupted. So you're going to have a couple DPS doing cleave, a couple doing, well, the tank will be doing a cleave, another DPS doing a cleave, another DPS doing a cleave, and then the other 2 will be doing overloads to stop the overloads happening, as you can see here. So take them out, get the mine down. DPS wise, just do your best. Just use all your adrenals. Just keep it going. If it's getting too low, use your meds. I unfortunately went a little bit too close to the edge there, but just use your meds. Get through the fight. What you need to focus on is there are going to be some ads, and when the ads come over, these ones that you just saw there in the video, they're very slow. Healers concuss them. the left healer does the left one, the right healer does the other one in the frame. Okay. The idea for this is you just want to worry about killing those afterwards, because if they reach the group they explode. There are some fast moving melee ones. When they come in, just burn them down with AoEs under the boss. That way you still do damage to the boss and you get rid of the threat of the ant. Okay, you can see them coming in here, and now people are going to start using their AoEs. And it's easy enough to get them down like that because you don't lose DPS on the boss. You may not get as much, but you're still going to be constant in hitting the boss. Right, for healers, there are going to be 2 debuffs. One is a yellow droid, one is an explosion marker. Cleanse them off immediately because the explosion marker will explode and it will do damage to anyone next to you. Also, you are going to have a fair time of healing this when it enrages. So keep your cooldowns for when you see the probe start to glow red, because that's when stuff's going to get pretty painful. Once you complete the minefield, run to the terminal, turn the terminal off. That will turn the minefield inactive, and the other tank can come and return to the group. Right now, you take out the 2 commanders. Yeah, 2 commanders that are next to Colonel Volgeth. Kill them, then kill Volgeth. Just get on him as hard as you can. Biggest rotations, burn him down. Switching targets is just because he's going to lose aggro from the tank, go on to somebody else and put a red marker on them. Don't worry too much, just move away from the group and then get healed up through it. Maybe use a defensive cooldown if you've got something spare. And once, as you can see here, the turrets have come up. Now what I normally do is I elect 2 ranged DPS, one to deal with the left side, one to deal with the right side, and just kill these as quick as you can. Alright, if you've got good DPS this shouldn't be a problem. Everybody else can just burn the boss. 2 melee on the boss, the tanks, everyone else just focus boss. Me and another Arsenal Merc are dealing with the turrets. We take them down. Unfortunately they cannot be CC'd on hard mode, which is a damn shame, but we do take them out just to take the pressure off of the healing. Because they'd only come up again anyway. So you just burn them down as quick as you can. There we go, and then you get back onto the boss. He himself isn't a problem, it's just the minefield. The minefield is the problem. Okay? Minefield is the problem, the boss, simple enough. The worst part though is of course if you haven't quite got enough people, and then he enrages and stuff like that, that's the hard bit when you make it across with say 4 people, half the raid. It's a little bit tricky, but it should still be doable. Please be aware though that as you finish the minefield, you may end up with 2 small explosive droids still following you. So you might get a surprise if you weren't to look behind you every now and then just to make sure that you're clear. But there you go, that's Colonel Volgeth. That's the whole tactics there. Person in the tower gets the easiest job though, just to unlock the mines. Right, last boss, Warlord Kyth. So, to begin, you need, as a raid leader, or if you're leading a pug, whatever you're doing, you need to assign 3 groups. The idea is that you have tank DPS, 2 DPS, the healers in the middle. Well, you can have the healers in the middle, or at least to the sides, just to do healing, not to do any DPS or anything. Teams of 2 on each of these droids, so 3 droids. They do a concentrated shot, I believe it's called, something like that. That does, it increases their damage reduction and armour. Increases it all, so that's the calibrated shot, that's the one. And you need to set up, say, I'll go first and interrupt, you go second, and your team kills their droid. Okay, so you kill your droid. The team that's 2 DPS will finish this faster than the team that is a tank and DPS. So the team that is a tank, sorry, that is 2 DPS, I normally have them go on the top droid, which is to the right of the video here, because then they can just split off left and right and go and help the other 2 groups, but it doesn't matter. So you take out the rest of the droids, and once they're all dead, now you do need to watch out for saturation fire here, okay? Just be aware of that. You can know when it's coming because you can look at the droid and see where its turrets are pointing. Now, number 1 thing here is you've got the Baradian bomb carrier. Okay, now I've got the bomb. When you've killed the bomb carrier, you go underneath it. I would suggest to pop the cooldown, right, defensive one, because you will take a sort of a melee mode type ability it has to sort of smash the ground. Once that's done, the droid comes down, it's electrified. Do as much damage as you can here, big rotations, use an adrenal, just really burn it hard. That's That's it. Now, next bit, you get these ads coming in. Now, you need to make sure you've got the Trandoshan Warrior, the yellow one. You kill him. Some tanks separate the group. Personally, I think it's not worth it. I just don't worry about it. Just keep him in one spot, kill the Trandoshan Warrior, then AoE down everything. There's no need to make it too complicated. Right, next group, do exactly the same thing again. Trandoshan Warrior, kill it, AoE down, and then the same for the third one. You'll see what I mean coming up. Watch out for saturation fire though, because you can get a little bit, you know, you're focused on killing things, and then of course something comes along your way and might kill you. So be aware of that as DPS. You may need to move. And the same thing for the last group. And there you go, so just AoE down the rest of it. And now the Bradian Bomb Carrier. If you have Sins or Power Techs, the idea is you want to pull that close to the walker. The reason why you pull it close to the walker is obviously because it reduces the time, the travel time to get the bomb underneath. But luckily it's all been pretty close thus far. So as you can see there, he goes up, bomb gets placed, and boom, so you hit the droid again. If you're an Arsenal Merc, I would suggest to use that time to build your stacks up if you haven't got them already. And so now, you will start to get these droids come down. Now, what you need to worry about these droids, now because it's a pug run, no one did this, but they do a thing called like rail shot, okay? So what you need to do is, you have one tank not be in melee range. Everybody else must stack up on the droids, but one tank goes and stands away from the group so that he takes the rail shot and no one else that's of lower armour, okay? The reason for this is because a tank can take the shots, but anybody else could almost take a one shot to it. As you can see that I just took one there, it took me down to 16% health from max. It's very powerful. So one tank goes off and the healers just look after him, because he'll be the one taking the damage. Alright? So that's a very easy way of getting around that and not having to worry about one-shotting a healer, because that's the worst thing that can happen at this point, because you're going to need both of those for the tanks in the end. Same with tanks, to be honest. Right. So take out the droid, and then the next one you can still take the maiden, the purples there. Okay, and now Kyth will come down from the droid. One tank, pick up Kyth and kite him. Just kite him. The reason for this is you've got to kite him because the big walker is not dead yet. We can't do the burn on Kyth because the walker's still alive. So, take out the Bradian Bomb Carrier. As you can see here, a pull would have helped a lot, because he's quite far away from the boss at this point. But, you take him out as quickly as you can. And then, whilst you're waiting for the bomb to go under, hit Kyth with all you've got. The tank must be aware that you may lose aggro during this, and you will take debuff, as you can see on the tank in the top left. Once you see it, tank swap. Just call a swap, okay? There's a big debuff that comes when he's on his own, but this is the one that you just need to make sure you have a swap off you, because that hurts a lot when you get hit again. Alright, burn down the droid. Might need one more burn. Yeah, we're going to need one more burn after that. Okay, so we need one more bomb. Luckily it's not too far away, this is manageable. And once again hit Kyth again. Gives you a nice healthy start when you can do the burn on him. Right, and then you take out the walker. Now yes, we did lose a couple of guys there, but it wasn't too bad. As long as we've got both the tanks, we'll be fine. Right, and now burn the boss, okay? So now all hands to the boss. Tanks, you must be aware now of where he jumps, so you don't want anyone underneath it. You want to make sure you're out the way of that. Everybody else that's ranged and healers can just stack up in one spot and get AoE healed, alright? That's the main thing. Okay, once you've got that down, what's going to happen is Kyth will do a attack called Breath of the Masters, if I'm not mistaken. It's a large purple AoE. Actually, I think what we call Gift of the Masters. We'll soon find out. Yeah, gift of the masters. So that one there, just avoid it. Now he's going to become his uber power Super Saiyan stage. So the tank now, you're going to take a debuff called Breath of the Masters. So once you've got it, swap off, and you need to take yourself away because you are going to be kiting around these orange AoE, purple AoEs. And that's the idea: is go around the edges, keep it nice and neat until your debuff has dropped off. Once it's dropped off, be ready to swap off with the other tank because he's about to take it. So you can see there, boom, he's got it. So now you swap. Now he's going to go and kite the purple around the other areas. The idea is do not keep this in the areas where you're fighting. You want it to be away from the group, not going to be a danger towards the rest of the group. And from this point on, it is a DPS race just to get him dead. If you have any raid buffs spare, use them at this point. If he is around 10 to 8% with no tanks alive, you'll probably still do it, okay? But just remember, keep it up, keep focused, make sure those AoEs are not in the group, and just kill him. Just get him dead at this point. As long as your tanks are alive, you'll be fine. Okay, you won't have anything to worry about. But if they aren't, you'll have one of you who takes the aggro will have to kite. So thank you very much. That is EC hard mode explained. Thank you all for watching, and I wish you the best of luck.